Brought to you by the TGEM Network. The podcast you're about to listen to is just about people coming together and sharing experiences, and is in no way an advice show. Enjoy.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Lambert, a registered health and exercise practitioner with a Bachelor's of Education and the founder and CEO of Strong Minds. This is our podcast, Real Talk with Strong Minds. What I want to see with this podcast is people coming together to talk about real life struggles and how we can come together to help ourselves overcome them. Today, I'm so excited to have Jennifer Wagner on the show. I am really excited to have her. It's been quite a long time that we actually saw each other in person, which is really sad. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh,
thank you for having me here.
No, thank you for finding some time to be here, because I know that we have a little bit of a time difference. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Why don't we just start there?
My name is Jennifer Wagner, and I am a certified life coach and certified trauma recovery coach. I am a big advocate for women in the trauma recovery field, and I'm also a big supporter of people and myself of psilocybin use for major depressive disorder and other therapeutic uses. So
wow. So you're doing a lot. Like, you're doing a lot of great things. It's interesting because I know it's been quite some time that we haven't seen each other, but there are lots of pros to social media. So the pro to social media is that I got to really tune into Jennifer's journey. I met her a few years ago when I don't believe you were really doing this. So I kind of want you to, maybe if you want, tell me how you came to Sault Ste. Marie. I know how we met, but I want to know, what brought you to the Sault?
So for the last 15 years of my life, and I'm still involved in supply chain management, I have my own corporation. So I'm a supply chain consultant that works on a lot of different contracts. And so I was in Sault Ste. Marie working on a 6-month contract with a maintenance repair operator for Porter Airlines. And since then, after that Sault Ste. Marie contract and getting more into my own healing, I decided to get involved in life coaching and trauma recovery.
Wow. I love it. I just want to hear so much more about this new adventure. So do you work alongside with agencies in regards to trauma?
No, I work by myself. So I do a lot of mentoring, educating, coaching with women in that area.
Yeah. Some of the guests that have been on the previous episodes of our podcast, we do have mental health in common. And, when I did hear about you going down the avenue of helping other people, with trauma, I just think it's so amazing. I am someone that has trauma, stems from my childhood. And I just think it's so important to, when you're at that point in your life, that you're able to talk about it and be around like-minded individuals that understand what you're talking about. It's just really refreshing. And I think that's why I really connected with you. When I'm going to tell maybe a little version of how we met, but you were doing a contract in the Sault and I was working in the restaurant industry, and you were, when you're from a small town, you can really pick up on who's from out of town. And I saw she was, I found her so beautiful. She was just sitting there in this green dress. And I was just so drawn to her. And I just really wanted to know more about you. And so I really, just kind of asked those questions. And then we really kind of started our friendship just from there, where, you were new to Sault Ste. Marie. And I am all about being inclusive. Like I am someone who has a lot of trauma from, past friends. And it was really refreshing when I met you because you were like a breath of fresh air. Like it was just so nice to really be able to talk to someone, a female who like I'm not at competition with, that wants to see me succeed, that like really just kind of, loved me for me. And it was just really refreshing how our friendship kind of started. But mind you, when I did meet you, like I wasn't really in a good place with my own mental health. Like I was struggling significantly with, I was in a lot of abusive relationships. I was really sick with my eating disorder. I didn't really share too much about that with you when we first really, connected, but I wasn't really in a good place. I was, into a little bit of addiction at the time. And it was nice to hang out with you because it was, I felt a little bit of some sort of normalcy when it came to friendship because I didn't have that with the core group of friends that I was hanging out with at the time. And so it was sad for you to go. And I hated that you actually had to leave the Sioux. But it was really nice that we were able to really, before COVID, we really did keep in touch. Like I came to Toronto to visit you, and even though we don't talk too often, it's so nice when it's nice to get a message from you sometimes to be like, to open up my inbox and, hey, thinking of you, how are you? And I now know that life is so busy that when you get messages from people like that, it's like really heartfelt. So yeah, and then COVID happened and I invited you to my baby shower. You couldn't really come because of the situation with what was going on with the pandemic. And honestly, like here we are. Like, I can't wait for us to really be reunited until we can be, having some dinner together. But yeah, that's kind of my little version of how I met Jen. And yeah, it's a really cool story. I love how we met. That green. Do you remember the green dress that you were wearing? I believe it was green.
It probably was though. Green's one of my favorite colors, green and red.
Yeah.
But I remember that. And I wasn't in the healthiest place either at that time. I was just coming out of a toxic relationship. So I think we shared that common ground in that sense. And I've had a lot of my own lived experience in trauma as well, so going through the things that I've went through, it was and having to heal and really hold my own hand to self-heal. I think that's what drew me to the desire to want to help other women because I was going through so much stuff myself. And even when I met you at that time, I was going through a really hard time in my life. So it was a beautiful breath of fresh air for me too, to meet someone in a place that I'd never lived, and we became like BFFs. So it was a lovely. I'll never forget those times. It was awesome.
So the one thing that I hate is that, the podcast is audio, but if you could see us, she has the cutest dimples and I love her smile. And so she's smiling right now and it's just so nice to see. But thank you. Yeah, it's just so interesting that when you meet people, no matter what, where you are in life, you just don't know someone's story. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I can't stress enough the importance of just being a kind human, because you just don't know where that person is in their journey. And yeah, when you share that you weren't in a good place, I do remember us having really heartfelt conversations when we went out for dinner. And I think that's why we were able to connect on those type of levels, because I was like, wow, there's this girl who's like my age who like gets it. And I find it like in general, it's hard to meet friends, but when you get older, it's hard to meet friends because it's like, what you want in a friend and you're a little picky. Like, I can't speak for you, but I'm very picky now with who I allow in my life. But it's actually kind of refreshing because for the first time in my life, I feel like I kind of almost have a little bit of not necessarily control, but I just have like so much self-love. That's what it is. I have so much self-love that I just can't even be exposed to anyone who can't be on the same level. So yeah, I think that we're kind of on the same path, which is really cool to see, how, like what Jen said when we met, how many years ago was it? Had to be 2016. Wow. So
November 2016.
look at that. Is that our anniversary date? We should,
It's our anniversary, baby.
You're so sweet. I love it. I love it. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now? I know that you kind of shared with us what, brought you to Sault Ste. Marie, but I really love that you're, a life coach, that you work in trauma. And I just really want to talk a little bit more about that if you are willing.
Yeah, so I still do work in the supply chain field. So I am working actually at a gold mine, but in my spare time, I'm heavily involved in health and wellness. And so my dream life is to create like an empire, a health and wellness empire. So part of that is with Arbonne. So I do Arbonne. And then Arbonne actually gave me the courage and confidence to go towards life coaching. So I really have to thank being part of that company. And that's a big part of my life. And so, I created a community, a free community on Facebook, and I do my own lives where I speak with other people that are in the trauma field on IG to offer that education and mentoring. And the community that I created on Facebook is called The Worthy Goddess. So that that really means something to me, because it's like coming from a background where I had the childhood trauma. I lost both my parents. I've had, adult trauma in my life through relationships. I find a lot of women who lose touch with themselves and have that lack of self-love. They have that lack of self-worth as well. So the Worthy Goddess really meant something to me, because I was on my own journey of learning to love myself again and learning to be worthy of who I was and what I had to offer. And so it was it's been a transformative few years since I've seen you.
I know.
I guess you could say. And I've always had a psychiatrist and she's amazing. She helped me through so much. But I always say, that's great, but we don't have anyone to hold our hand when we leave that office. So how are we going to learn to heal ourselves? And that's where I think coaching and mentoring, educating people on trauma recovery comes in, because there's not enough resources out there for people, especially people that don't have any money. And so, there's coaches, mentors available that are not as expensive as a psychiatrist or psychologist. Some are, depends on how well known they are. But being able to be a peer-to-peer support for someone is massive, because other people, I know that there are people out there that can't relate to a psychologist or a therapist or a psychiatrist. They can relate to someone who's had their own lived experience.
Honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was, just going to elaborate on what you said. I honestly believe that individuals that have lived experience are the best people that can help. I know that professionals do great things, but I do believe that individuals that have lived experience are the pros. Like they know, they can relate, they can help. And I think it's just so fantastic what you're able to offer, women in your community. But what's awesome is that when the nature of your other job with traveling, you can really bring this to so many communities. So it's really cool because, when you continue doing your job and you go to different types of cities, no matter how long your contract is, you could really bring this anywhere. So I hope, it does flourish because you're so contagious. Like, honestly, I just can't wait for the people that get to meet you
Thank
in
you.
their I can't wait for people to meet you along their journey because you have so much to offer. Like,
Thank
even,
you.
circling back to, that I want to just say that kind of that darkish time in both of our lives, like we were both struggling in different ways that, again, when we kind of hung out, it was almost like just very, I felt that, this is kind of how I now explain things. There's like two worlds. There's like the healthy world, the unhealthy world. And I was just living in like a really unhealthy world for so long that it was really nice that when we were able to hang out and connect, that it was almost like I felt like I saw a little bit of that healthy world, even though you didn't feel healthy yourself. Like, does that make sense what I'm
Yeah.
kind of saying? Which yeah, it was just really, it was a really good time when you were in Sault Ste. Marie. I hope that your contracts and your journey brings you back to me in Sault Ste. Marie. I need you to meet my child. Like, I can't even
I
believe
know.
it's been that long.
I
And
know.
it's really refreshing to know that things are, kind of lifting. So yay.
Yeah.
So, Jen, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. But I really do kind of want to let you have the final words. Is there anything that you would like to say before we, end the episode?
Yeah, I think that one thing I want to touch on is that, even though we've had those dark times and we're in a better place right now, trauma is not linear. It's circular. And so there might be times where we have to go back and revisit a part of ourselves over and over again until we heal every single part. And it's kind of like you're peeling back the layers. And so I think healing is just a lifelong journey. And the way to world peace is through loving yourself first and healing yourself so that you can help others heal. And then in return, the world heals. So it's a process. It's difficult at times, but there are many beautiful moments throughout that painful journey where you really truly find yourself and you meet so many beautiful people along the way, just like you and I met.
You know what?
And
I
now
didn't know
we're here.
how, and you know what? I didn't know how like much, trauma talk you really wanted to get into, but I think it's so important what you just said. Like, I love my therapist. What I think when I go to therapy, it's like the onion,
Yeah.
model, where it's like when you are an individual that has significant trauma, it's important to really, going to counseling is great, but I personally believe going to therapy is a little bit of a better avenue to go, because when you go to counseling, it's just putting like a band-aid on the issue. When you're going to like therapy, you're getting to the root of what caused things. And for
Right.
me, I mean, there's so many different types of therapy, but I would love to even just talk quickly about the type of therapy I get for, for my trauma. It's IFS, internal family system, and it's just super cool. It's a really awesome model. And that model has significantly been helping my trauma. And you make such a good point when you say that, I think you said like trauma isn't linear, which
Yeah.
is so accurate, because you could be like, I have a lot of parts that need to heal, and we've healed a lot of parts in the almost 3 years that I've been going to, massive therapy. But even when I think I'm healed, like something can just like trigger a memory, and then it's like you're exposed to that moment. It's almost like you feel like you're reliving it, and then you have to like go through your day, like, and then some people wonder, like, it's not that easy. So you're right, it's not linear, because every day you're faced with maybe a challenge of what happened in your past. And I mean, no one will really understand it unless you have trauma.
Yeah. And I think we all have trauma. It's just some people decide to work on it and some don't.
Exactly.
Because they just don't recognize it. And that's that. But we're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And even I realized a lot of the relationships that I had that were not great, those people were traumatized as well. And they were just working with what they had. So the upside of trauma is learning to be super empathetic and compassionate and forgiving. And when we can see life from that sort of lens, from a trauma lens, we realize that, the intention behind some of the hurt that we've experienced was really, there was no intention at all. And it was just someone else who was hurting and projecting their pain on to others because they didn't know how to deal or move through it.
Mm-hmm.
So
wow.
It's we could go on and on talking about trauma. We could be here for hours and days.
I know, right? You'll have to come back. You'll have to come back on the podcast, and we'll have to do like, a specific, topic. But no, I could honestly listen to you for hours. I love the way you speak.
I could listen to you for hours too.
You're just like an intelligent woman, and I'm so lucky and thankful to have you in my life. Truly. I can't wait until we are reconnected, and maybe we can do another podcast in person in the future. But yes, thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you so much for being here. I love you more. If you do not follow Jen on social media, you need to go and follow her. She is so amazing. She has great motivational videos and content on her socials. And what I said early on, yes, social media has pros and cons, but I fill my socials with positive people. So anytime I go on social media, I don't feel like I'm in this like negative like vibe, I'm going in it with really good intentions. Jen, can you just tell us what your socials are so that if anyone wants to subscribe or like, they can find you, because your content is so amazing.
You can find me at Jenny Wag, so JENIWAGZ on Instagram, and join my community on Facebook called The Worthy Goddess. It's a Facebook group, and that is also linked to my professional, business page, which is just under Jennifer Wagner.
Thank you so much, Jen, for being here. It's been an absolute experience, honestly, having you. You're just so full of knowledge. I love listening to you speak. So thank you guys for tuning into our podcast, and until next episode.